Well, hey there, you're on the internet, I have some free time, and welcome to the Triple N Network, where all you newbie nib nerds can find all the news you'll need. Let's look at an ink today, shall we? Now, today's ink is from the Levenger sample pack. Gemstone Green. Now, as it's been pointed out before, this is supposed to be light, fast, and quick drying. I don't know if it's light fast, but they're not always very quick drying. And as you can probably tell from this setup, you get one cartridge each of all the colors except for Cobalt, where you get 3, and Raven Black, where you get 3. Now, since I started testing these, I've forgotten just how little ink is in a single cartridge. So there have been a couple incidences where I've run out of the ink before I've fully completed the tests. So when that started happening, I made myself sort of stop playing around with the pens that had this ink in it, and so Gemstone Green actually ended up sitting in a pen for a little while. I mean, not ages, but a little while, and in that time, the performance went seriously downhill. So just as a warning. Now, all the tests were done in this AG Spalding Bros pen with a medium nib, but these nibs are manufactured in Japan, so they're actually pretty fine. Now let's check out the chromatography. As you can see, it's got some blue in it. It's definitely a lot of blue at the bottom. You see this little circle, and then it's light blue, and then it's mostly green up at the top. And here I let it dry. I always do that. Where you can see that circle at the bottom got a little bit darker, but other than that, there's really not a lot of change. Now, this is Levenger's Gemstone Green, and I didn't really have many other inks to compare it to because I couldn't find anything that quite matched. So I thought I'd compare it to a few other things. So here's Parker's Quink Green. There's Noodler's Blue Nose Bear. Check these guys out. Here we got Toucan Aqua, Diamine Soft Mint, Diamine Steel Blue, Mint Turquoise, Diatramentus Pigeon Blue, and Diatramentus Petrol. If I had to pick something it was closest to, it would probably be somewhere between Petrol and Quink Green. But yeah, it's turning it very... there's a lot of blue in this green, but it's turning it very straight green. I shall fix it in post. Paper test. Top down in density, Clairefontaine, 90 grams per square meter. As you can see, there's some very nice shading here, but as I said at the beginning, it started behaving quite badly. You see that feathering? You see that really woolly texture? It wasn't like that at first. It was a very nice, pleasant green. I was enjoying using it, but that was partly why I made myself stop, because I knew I'd probably run out of ink before I could finish the test. 14 seconds to dry, which in an essentially kind of a fine nib, and for an ink that claims to be kind of quick drying, is not very quick drying. But, yeah. So all the light's coming from this direction, but you can still see bits where it's almost coming through, and this is 90 gram per square meter paper. I mean, look at that. That's not thin paper. So that's not great. Yeah, there was bleed through, there was feathering. There wasn't really spread so much as like when there was that like woolly near feathering, when it was lateral, it made it look almost a bit wider, but not real spread. Water test. As you can see, most of what washed away is the green, and what's down at the middle is the blue. But, I mean, it did feather, it did explode a bit. Really not a great showing. Next is Rhodia, 80 grams per square meter, where again we have some really nice shading, but again, 14 seconds to dry. And again, we have some problems. Also, I'm not going to be able to get this on camera, but there are little bits of halo in the words where you get almost like a purpley sheen, like in the around the dot of the I, or that thing through the middle of the Q. I'm not gonna get it. Crap. Oh, wait, do you see the eye in Spalding? Kind of flashy. Anyways, moving on. And again, all the light's coming from this direction, and yet you can still see bits where it's almost coming through in spots. But, yeah, not great. There is a very woolly texture to it, but there's no, I say there's minor feathering, but I'm actually having some trouble finding it now that I've got the camera rolling. It's mostly just a weird texture. And again, as you can see, come on. As you can see, most of the green washed away and what's left is just blue, but it's very light. It would be very difficult to read. So, next is Tomoe River Paper, where it took 21 seconds to dry, which, I mean, even some like labeled quick dry inks that I have don't dry quickly at all on this paper, but still 21 seconds in essentially a fine nib is really not too impressive. But here we do get sheen. I don't know if can you see it all through, like in Gemstone, you see that red in the letters? It's actually more of a purple on the other papers, but here it's red. See that? So yeah, it sheens very nice here, but this was also the first place where we didn't have bleed, feather, and spread. Yeah. But since it is a fairly thin paper, if you're sensitive to it, that might be the problem with echo potential. But here, it just turned the bottom of the page blue. It's very hard to read what's at the very middle. You have to work really hard to recover that. Next is 20-pound copier paper, where it did terribly. It took 1 second to dry. I'm going to try and hold this really still so you can see it. You see that really kind of nasty, like feathering, and it spread a good bit. Like if you look at the line width, it got a good deal broader. All of the shading is gone. That's a lot of bleed for what's essentially a fine nib. Yeah, it's kind of a mess. And this water test is a disaster. You can see the green kind of was washing off and exploding, and sort of what's at the center is blue, but it's a disaster down there. That would definitely be a struggle to recover. Next is Mead Notebook Paper, where it took 2 seconds to dry. Again, we have that very intense woolliness, some feathering. Again, that's a lot of bleed for what's essentially a fine nib. Not a great showing. Water test kind of exploded, but it's darker. I mean, if you absolutely had to recover this, you probably could with some diligence, but yeah, it exploded, it dyed the page. And lastly is Moleskine paper, which, as we've probably come to expect at this point, was just a huge disaster. I mean, look at that. That's just awful. That's distractingly bad. I mean, really bad. And it took 3.5 seconds to dry, which I don't understand because this is really absorbent paper. And again, this is essentially what I would call a Western fine nib, and it bled that much. That's a disaster. And I mean, that's like hard to read because of how just like furry it's looking. And it absolutely decimated the paper. It has like this really weird texture to it now. It exploded, started to like overlap, very intense feathering. It's a mess. So I kind of don't know what to say about this. When it was fresh, I really enjoyed it. Thought, you know, it's a very unique color. I'm enjoying it quite a bit. However, after being in the pen a while, it kind of just started making a mess everywhere. So, yeah. For your consideration from the Triple N Network, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe to the channel. And thanks for watching. Bye.